this episode, I interviewed Tony Guy. He studied mechanical engineering at University of California, Santa Barbara. Hello, my name is Connor Dixon. I'm here with Tony Guy, an aerospace engineer that went to UCSB. Tony, what was your inspiration and what inspired you to become an engineer? And when did you know that you wanted to be an engineer?
Well, when I was a kid growing up, I was always intrigued by how devices worked. I was that kid that would take apart appliances. I took the back off the television. Back in those days, we had CRT style televisions, and I wanted to know how everything worked. Took apart a toaster, and then my grandfather noticed that I had mechanical ability, and he was a mechanic. So he started showing me how to work on cars, and I really enjoyed working on cars. And
Mhm.
and so the hardest part was trying to figure out which part of engineering I wanted to go into.
And how did you choose that? Which fields? What was your decision making on that?
Well, ultimately, I grew up in an age when hot rods and German cars were the rave, and so I was very interested in Porsche engines, and so I went to college to become an engine design engineer or a mechanical engineer. And it just turned out that at the time that I graduated from college, the automobile industry was depressed, and so I actually went into the aircraft or aerospace industry instead.
And what was your experiences in college being a mechanical engineer and switching to aerospace engineer?
Well, so my experience in college was brutal because college is hard. And then on top of that, being an engineering student was difficult. And I lived with business majors, and it made it difficult because my friends were all always having fun, it seemed like, and I would have to go to the library and study.
Mm,
But I was dedicated. Like I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I knew that there was a price to pay. I had to study, and so therefore I did.
mm. It was if you could go back and change anything in your college, what would you change anything, or do you like how it played your college and career played out?
Well, it's really interesting because I had applied to UCLA and Carnegie Mellon University. And UCLA at the time was one of the highest rated engineering schools in the nation. And so was Carnegie Mellon. And Carnegie Mellon is in Pennsylvania, and that's where my father grew up. And so that was the school my father always talked about. He always said that the smart engineers went to school there. So I
Hmm.
applied to those schools. And I was accepted through UCLA, but I got a letter in the mail asking me if I would please consider going to UC Santa Barbara instead. And I showed the letter to my mom, and my mom said, "Santa Barbara is the most beautiful city in the world.
Hmm.
You need to look into that." And I grew up in northern Lake Tahoe in a city called Truckee. In the winter,
Yeah.
that winter we had 6 feet of snow on the ground, and I went to do a college campus visit. So I went from 6 feet of snow to the beaches,
Yeah.
all within a matter of 8 hours. And once I saw UCSB, I knew that's where I had to go to school. I just knew it. And so I did get accepted to the other schools, but I decided to go to Santa Barbara mainly because of the climate, the weather, and also the people.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a big choice in choosing colleges. It's not just the best programs, it's where you feel the most like you want to go as well.
Well, and I was fortunate because they all had really strong programs in mechanical engineering. And in those days, mechanical engineering was more of like the catch-all for a lot of engineering studies because we learned about building design, so basic trusses in a home, but we also did skyscraper design, we did bridge design, and then we
Mhm.
did equipment design. And I really enjoyed all of it, especially the rotating equipment.
What has been the biggest problem that you've had to solve throughout your career in college and all in different jobs and companies that you've worked for? Has there been one problem that has stuck with you, or have you had different problems at different jobs? And what have they been?
Well, I would say the largest challenge has always been relative to lean manufacturing, because during my career, the aircraft and automobile industry went from a single piece part flow through a factory, but then utilizing Deming's principles for lean manufacturing that were taught by the Toyota production systems. So I would say the biggest challenge, not necessarily a problem, the challenge was learning about new production systems in lean manufacturing and applying them to an industry that didn't know how to use them. But in aircraft, we were very lucky. We got to watch the automobile industry and learn from their wins and from their mistakes.
Can you explain what lean manufacturing is to anyone that doesn't know what that means?
Sure, lean manufacturing are principles, operational principles, as well as engineering principles that cut out the waste. There's forms of waste in lean manufacturing. You identify the waste so that you can remove the waste from your process, and then you focus on those parts of the process that add value to the product that you're building and ultimately selling.
All right, thank you. And what was some of the tools and software that was used to to help you with the lean manufacturing?
Well, fortunately, today there's a lot of MRP and ERP, enterprise resource planning systems that will help you. But when I was learning it, we had basic systems and we had to do manual calculations. And then there are books. Luckily, Toyota Production Systems made lean manufacturing. It's not simple, but a lot easier to understand and comprehend. And then today there's a lot of books and there's a lot of computer software that will do a lot of the grunt work for you. So as long as you're aware of the process and you know what systems you want to develop or change, the software will do it for you. It's fantastic today.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to high school students or college students that are trying to get into an engineering field or in an engineering field that are struggling right now and need some help? What would some advice you'd give to them be?
Oh, I would definitely recommend that they do something like what you're doing, Connor, and try to understand all the different fields because engineering is a large field and there's a lot of specialties. Even where I was working before, we had mechanical design engineers, electrical engineers, materials engineers, manufacturing engineers, plastic engineers. We had the whole realm. So engineering is a very big field. The first thing is to understand, do you want to be somebody that's behind a computer running calculations and simulations all day long? Or do you want to be the engineer that's out on the production floor? And I say that because I started out very theoretical with mechanical engineering. And so I sat behind a computer at the beginning part of my career and I went stir crazy because I couldn't sit still. So I moved from mechanical engineering to manufacturing engineering by self-education, utilizing the study program that Cal Poly San Luis Obispo had. And so I moved into that area and I found that I prefer to be an engineer that works on the production floor.
Mm. And what do you think a high school student should look for in a college program? What should they look for in a college program for engineering? Is there certain professors that need to do this or tools that they need to have at the colleges that would make it a good engineering program?
Well, definitely first know which engineering field you're interested in. And I use an example. UCSB, where I went, is a theoretical school. Cal Poly San Luis Obispo is a hands-on school. So they teach you different skills. So the business that I ran here in the Santa Maria Valley, we utilized engineers from both schools. So our most advanced mechanical design engineers, structural engineers, and electrical engineers all came from a program at UC Santa Barbara, same as UCLA, same program, versus our industrial engineer, our materials engineers, our manufacturing engineers. They came from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So we would take the theoretical and then you have to mix it with the hands-on, and that's the engineering field. There's a whole spectrum. So try to understand which area you want to concentrate, and then go to a school that is tailored towards your specific concentration. If you want to be a mechanical design engineer and sit behind a computer, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo is not the right school for you. Yeah, so just understand the idiosyncrasies of each of the programs. Now, you asked about the professors. I'll give you some examples. Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and Cal Poly Pomona have some of the world's experts in lean manufacturing and industrial
Mm.
manufacturing and operations. So they focus in that area. But you look at UCLA and UCSB, UC Irvine as examples. They have some of the smartest people in the world that understand theory and understand the process. So you kind of have to tailor your college experience around the fields that each of the schools is addressing, or understand where your passions are, and then also know that it could change. You could start in one school and not like it, and I would encourage you, don't give up. Finish, because like in my case, I changed engineering careers about 5 years into it because
Mm.
what I thought I wanted to do, I did want to do at the time, but as I became more exposed to other engineering activities, I just kind of shifted or pivoted.
So you're saying that if people want to go in the more theoretical and behind a computer, they should try to get into a UC or a school like that and want to be more hands-on than go to a Cal State school?
Well, that's just how it works here locally. I would recommend that you definitely look at the syllabus and understand. Online you can read about each of the engineering programs, and they will tell you based upon the staff in particular that they have, their concentrations, and then go look at the staff. Find out if the college is hiring staff that are going to do applied engineering versus the staff that are going to do more theoretical or hands-on. So just try to understand. But I will also tell you, Connor, getting into engineering school today isn't as easy as it was when I
Hmm.
got into engineering
Yeah.
school. So sometimes you just have to apply to a bunch of schools and hope you get into one.
Hmm.
And don't let that discourage you, because the 4 years you spend in engineering school is very common across the board. It's just that last year, that fourth year, when you really get to focus on the electives, those things that you want to do. That's where you really get to grow in either direction. But the first 3 years, almost 4 years, it's common, Connor. No matter what school you
Hmm.
go to, you're going to have to learn those same skills.
All right, thank you. And how is your field of engineering that you went into for aerospace and manufacturing, how is that changing with times and new advancements in tools and computer planning programs and AI? And how is that um, helping or hurting your industry?
Well, first off, it's definitely helping, and I'll
Mhm.
give you some examples. When I went to college, it was in the 1980s, and I had to do the math calculations by hand. And some calculations would take 3 or 4 pages of paper, and that would be one problem. And we would have to submit that, and somebody would review the calculation to make sure that we did the math right. Today, they're not focused on you doing the math right. They're focused on you understanding the concept, which actually frees up your brain to absorb more energy and more data. So you're in a very good position because engineering has excelled,
Mhm.
and the new way of doing engineering, utilizing computers and utilizing AI, will allow you to grow even further in what's commonly understood in those fields. It's a wild frontier, and it's perfect for
Mhm.
you.
What do you think is something that's happening in engineering, your field or any engineering field that the normal person that's not in engineering doesn't really know about, that is really interesting and cool to you, that's kind of not as well known that people wouldn't know?
Well, okay, so I went into the engineering field thinking that I was going to be an engineer, and you do engineering calculations and you figure out engineering problems and you build and design things. But what I didn't realize is, depending upon your skills and your passions, a lot of engineers also become the business leaders, the business managers and business leaders. For example, I worked at a company that had about 20% of the entire staff were engineers. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and over 50% of them were direct labor, people that were building the parts. So why so many engineers? Because it takes the engineers to understand what the product is and how the production line works, and then those engineers work up into the management positions. I got myself to the point where I was even the CEO of the company, and along the way, I wasn't necessarily doing engineering work, but I was working with engineers, making decisions on how we were going to spend the company's money in order to design and develop new products.
And if you had to choose any career that wasn't engineering, what do you think that would be in your life?
Well, okay, so after graduating from college, I got a job, I got married, I had a family, I bought a house, I did all these things. What one thing that I learned is I wasn't as passionate about sitting behind a desk. So I learned to be a manufacturing engineer so I could be on the production floor. But simultaneously to that, I learned that I love being outside. So if I was to do it all over again, I would do something that's architecture or landscaping architecture, something where I could be outside. It's still engineering, and I'll tell you,
Hmm.
you still use the engineering principles, maybe not to the same degree, but it allows the opportunity to be outside rather than being inside. Now, one thing you have to take into consideration is most engineering jobs today require the use of a computer. And because it requires the use of a computer, it's usually in a lowly lit environment, and so it's dark.
Hmm.
Just think about that versus being outside, and that was my case. I just love to be outside.
Mm. All right, so that is it. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Tony, for being here. And that will be all for today. If you like this episode of An Engineer's Journey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment if I should do season 2, and comment any additional questions you'd like me to ask. That'll be all. Bye bye.